Okay. Yeah, I've corrected the little stream error we had at the start. And I think we're live. How's it going, everyone? And welcome to another episode of No Excuses with your favorite show hosts are still.
And Alan no fern because he has abandoned us in our time of need yet again. At the last minute, he let us know that he apparently, how did he put it? His time had been thoroughly bogarted. Um,
That's
Not sure
all.
exactly what that means, but the short version is he's not here, and we don't know if he will be here.
Yeah, that's all the detail we got. Uh, we
Yeah,
we we
bogarted.
we got nothing else. It will often go this way. Like one of us may have like one or two lines from Fern throughout the week when he's busy, and the other one will get nothing. And then he may or may not post the general. Oh, I've been kidnapped, and we just don't know until he gets back.
Yeah. So, I mean, we were gonna try and deliver a show, but we were sort of counting on him because Ari and I haven't really got much to talk about, and the industry has not been supplying much either. It's really not been great this week. But we'll do our best anyway, and if you'd like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com, or you can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or you can join us in the Discord server, which you can get to by clicking on the link provided underneath the show description in the archive on YouTube.
Yes, indeed. You may notice we are back in Genshin today instead of bopping around in Final Fantasy this time, and we're trying to clean up the hide and seek event. So,
Yes, which has had mixed results for me. Because I feel very persecuted a lot of the time.
but it's only got like a day and a half left, so queues are instant, and it doesn't matter if we win or lose, or even if we're paying attention. So yeah, I'll be playing as the shuttlecock in the idea that if I am small, maybe they will see me, even if I am unable to be seen. Oh, you're gonna be the only non-shuttlecock on the rebel team. Oh, you're gonna be the only non-shuttlecock in the game.
Well, unfortunately, I don't really have any shuttlecock to work with. I could go for an imitation shuttlecock,
Lee,
but I could, but I'll be the distraction.
right,
Oh, come on, this isn't a disguise at all.
righto. So,
There's no world in which anybody would be fooled by this disguise.
if anyone asks, we are college-age white women because we're playing
Yep,
Dead by Daylight.
essentially, yep.
I am hiding. I am a lantern. See
I
me.
am not hiding. I am doomed. I'm doomed to failure by being the only tall girl on a team of incredibly short girls. Tick, tick, tick. I mean, whatever floats your boat, guys. Come on.
Oh, I will return to. Oh no.
Oh my goodness me.
How did he not see me? How did I get away with that garbage? I cannot believe I got away with that.
I was the most poorly disguised chair in the world, out in the middle of the fields.
Oh no, it's at 92.
No fair. I tried, but we still get points for failure, right?
Mm-hmm. No, we do not need that many. Yeah, you only need like 4,500 total. That was a quick one. I guess we only had one life that time?
Apparently,
Or
I,
maybe
th- I think that
Oh, she
I,
captured us
I
in
don't.
quick succession, I think. I think that's what happened.
I think there was none active at the same time
Yeah.
because all of the signaling devices are so close together that if everybody's repairing one, that she can just grab everybody at once. So right, should I go for a midget this time?
Seems to be the strat I'm using.
I feel like Klee might be too loud of a midget. There's always the Yao option, I guess, but we've got a Nouvelette, somebody who is clearly wholly accustomed to being invincible in any context.
Mm. Side of here, or is it?
We are awfully close to the hunter. We might be fine. What? Gonna be awfully exposed up there.
Man. That Zhongli sure is doing a thing.
I'm gonna get. Please don't.
Oh, I went invisible.
You have to take a different route, I think.
Oh, that was. Why did it turn me into a big giant box?
Wow, that actually worked. He just ran straight past me, even though I was a barrel just parked in the middle of the field.
What is our Nouvelette doing?
I do not know. Latency, come to my aid! Ah.
Oh no, he saw the dash and stump. Wait,
I'm not really sure how you're supposed to win in that map because there's so much.
Well, it helps if you don't have a
exposed.
Nouvelette.
Yeah, well, did we?
Oh, well, no, we had a Nouvelette. That was the problem.
Well, I didn't see him.
Yeah, I know.
Except at the beginning of the game.
Well, how would you know? He doesn't know what he's doing. He could have been sitting there with his thumb up his butt. I guess there is no penalty for just joining and going AFK.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to keep getting...
Oops. Need to do that. Why is some things accept in this game with A and some accept with X?
I don't.
I guarantee you that's why everybody else has been quitting out of matchmaking too. Whenever we get to the matchmaking queue. They're thinking it's another X to confirm.
Another group of shorties. Close. I'm just going to sit here and do nothing. Until he gets bored and moves away.
I'm trying to repair one in the middle of the map. This is very dangerous.
I'm with a Farina. Trying to repair. I don't feel very inconspicuous, to be honest.
I don't either. They're definitely gonna find me. Nope, nope, nope. Okay.
I'm not very well disguised, but will he see me? I'm not in my natural habitat. He used a discovery thing on me.
Yeah,
Oh crap!
he got the
Oh crap!
he got the map drop thingy, and it looks like it let him see us for 20 seconds.
Keep chasing me while the others do something useful.
Trying to make it to the far one with our friend Farina.
He caught me. I
Me
can
and,
only sprint so fast.
me and the other Farina ran to the opposite end of the map and are trying to one of the generators over here.
I sprinted as far away as I could.
Got it. Obtained a favor, but did not win.
Ooh, a lot of points for us that time.
Yeah. So, that'll get us close to all the primo.
Primos was 4961.
We ain't quite there yet. We gotta do one more. Oh, you got more than I do. I only got 4413. One more. So, I guess we should explain why we don't have a week.
Well, I guess that is normally I'm used to not having to start, but Fern is not here. Why is he not here? What is he doing to me? Yeah. So this past week has not been particularly accommodating of my mental health, generally speaking. An awful lot of things have gone wrong, and in addition to all of that, it was the audit this week. So, as I've mentioned in the past, probably I mentioned around this time last year, in order to maintain your accreditation to release legitimate results as a laboratory in New Zealand, you need to be periodically audited by IANZ. These lamps, man.
Oh, no. It found me.
I'm just going to sit here and wait for Chi-Chi to run away. Yes. I'll move on. Unfortunately, all of these signaling devices are too close together. So yeah, we had our annual audit. Now this year, fortunately, actually, I'm just going to stay hidden until you guys get released.
Wow.
Okay.
I'm very inconspicuous here.
Chi-Chi's running towards me, and I'm not in my natural habitat. Chi-Chi's camping these three devices, which is a logical course of action as the hunter. Ah! That's not fair.
While they go after you, while I got the light, maybe I can up the nucleate here. We can score.
I hit the edge of the map. There was nothing I could do.
Me and the nucleate might score a point while he's chasing you.
Go. Do your best. I've got 12 seconds more capture.
I am the most conspicuous lantern of all time.
Chi-Chi's basically standing on this point over here. right next to me. Oh my goodness. Not ideal. Why are they so close together? We have to gamble on it.
Mm-hmm.
No
Break,
choice.
break, 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 break.
Ah, I didn't realize that was the direction it was approaching from.
Yeah, it was.
That map is just unreasonably difficult. You need to break up those three first, I think.
By
So
trying to
that
get
it's,
one of the middle ones.
yeah, you need to make sure that the whatever ones are left can't be too close together. Otherwise, it's too easy for the hunter to cover the whole area.
Especially if it gets down to the last minute when they have a short cooldown capture button. Alright, that's all the primos.
Right.
Righto. So, audit week.
Yeah, so audit week, it sucked because it was an audit. Audits always suck, but it was just a surveillance audit. So audits come in three main flavors. A general technical audit, a specialized technical audit, and a surveillance audit. And last year was our general technical audit, which is the biggest one. It takes 3 days or so, and 2 to 3 days, depending on the size of your lab. And you have to have a technical expert come in and assess your practices, in addition to one of IANZ's in-house auditors who will assess you from a regulatory perspective and so on. And they basically tear your entire lab apart to look at everything. That alternates with surveillance audit, which is just where they look at your paperwork traceability predominantly. They'll still look in your lab, but it will be in a generalized way, not a specific way, because they won't have a technical expert with them. And the specialized technical audit is where they take one particular slice of the scope you're accredited for, and they look at that in deep detail, which can be the hardest one to get out unscathed, especially if they pick molecular, because technical experts have preferences. This is why you've got to be very careful about picking your technical expert, because they have preferences. And really opinionated ones will write you up for anything that they just don't like. And since they have been brought on as the expert, they sort of have the authority to do so, whether or not it's legitimate. You can fight back, and you only really need to satisfy IANS. You don't really need to satisfy the technical expert when you fight back. And I've sort of got a bit of a reputation for squabbling with auditors over things like, no, I just don't think you're valid. I don't think that your opinion is worth complying with, because you're just trying to make me conform to your preferences, and it's not going to actually affect the integrity of our testing type of thing. But the general gist of things in the surveillance audit is just that you've got to wrestle your way through the paperwork and hope you don't get caught out on not having documented something. We got through pretty well. We didn't have very much wrong. We only got one corrective action, and it was a very minor one. It was somebody hadn't signed their name to a piece of paperwork. It's just as a matter of like clerical failure type of thing. So there's one flaw in the documentation. There's a few recommendations, other things that we could improve, but generally speaking, that's not going to cripple us in any particular way. So we got through more or less unscathed. However, it's a very tense sort of thing to go through, getting audited. So it basically tuckered me out for the rest of the week, pretty much. I've got various other things going on at work that I need to deal with as well, and generally speaking, the week really dragged. I didn't have much time to do anything else, so I don't have much of a week to talk about. In Blue Archive is sort of on a not quite a dead week, but a dead week essentially. Everybody's waiting for the next chapter of the story, and the Kikyo and Renge banners are up next, but not out yet. So, like last week, I had rolled on Yukari, who is basically the Japanese flavored Aru in a sense, like incredibly confident but total goofball in practice. It's not like they're the same character, but they're both kind of a little bit girl failure. Um, but the next two that are coming out are Renge and Kikyo. Now, Renge is more or less a much of a muchness. She's not a limited either, and she's just a Sonic damage. Like they're really leaning hard into Sonic right now because the next raid boss to come out is going to be Weak versus Sonic. So, most of the characters coming out at the moment are. Renge is just she's a sort of an odd duck because she's essentially a dot damage character, and there's really not much of room for that type of thing in the game modes at the moment. Like, it's not really beneficial to build that way. It's not like she can't do damage, but you're probably, if you're just going for a straight off Sonic beat stick and you don't have Swimsuit Hanako, you're probably better off the Yukari, I would guess, more or less. Though Swimsuit Hanako is just better generally than basically every other Sonic DPS in the game, whether it's for sort of long form combat or burst combat. She's still better. Kikyo, on the other hand, is basically the only Sonic striker support. So while she's not particularly grand as a support in any way, she's the only one in her color. So if you want to do the elastic armor boss, you're going to be forced to more or less roll on Kikyo. She's the meta pick simply by merit of the fact that there are no meta picks other than her. Like, there are no picks. You can't use a different striker support in that color. You could use off-color ones, and there's often no harm in doing so. But for purple, it's Kikyo will go home. So yeah, I'll probably pull for her just so that I've got the option available. But after that, most people are going to go into saving mode. There's not really that many major ones. Like, the one immediately after Kikyo is the swimsuit Amy banner.
That one has cute animal friends.
It does have penguins in it. And following that is sort of the go on.
Oh no, I was just thinking if there was a banner that I might come back and dump my little bit of gems I got on, it would be swimsuit Emmy just for the penguins.
Well, now's a good time to clean up some more primos because they just reset the PvP ladder, so you'll get your climb the ladder primos again.
I see. Yeah, because have you seen how adorable those penguins are inside the house? He shows up in your cafe.
Penguins. They are definitely penguins. After that is the Veritas camping event, where the hacker squad of Millennium are forced to go and touch grass in the woods. And there's not really many must rolls there. I've heard that one of them is a really effective support for certain raids, and probably would be a must pull for anybody who is interested in being competitive. But I'm not that motivated to pull her, because if you pull on too many banners, you're not going to be prepped for the next pre-fest. So you have to sort of, throttle your expectations a little bit. And then the ones after that are sort of like Ibuki, Makoto. Well, Ibuki's free, actually, if I recall correctly. Makoto, and then the dress character banners. The Ako dress, Hina dress, Kyoko dress, Aru dress. And I would say that Hina dress is probably a must pull out of those, because her power level is just really, really high, generally speaking. Like, she's the sort of like the go-to explosive DPS from the point that she comes out. And frankly, I don't have a premier one. Like, she's sort of like the Mika for explosive. She's not quite as meta distorting as Mika is, due to Mika's like just crits all the time, lol. But she's still very, very powerful. And currently I rely on New Year's Haruna to do explosive DPS, and I think she's good, but she's generally viewed as a suboptimal choice. So I'll probably pull for Dress Hina, but after that it will pretty much be saving. I would like to get Aru Dress. Aru Dress is supposedly quite good, and Ako Dress is supposedly quite good as well, but I'm probably not going to prioritize them. getting the because I'm all about the comfy clear. Like I'm not trying to compete for timing or to complete to clear higher difficulties. I just want to get enough resource income flowing in that I can comfortably participate in all of the content. I'm only looking for participation trophies. I don't really need the platinum trophy. Yeah. After that,
I don't even get the participation trophies in that game anymore. I just log in and get the waifus.
Yeah, I'm there primarily for the story, but to me, you need to be able to at least do the bosses in order to really appreciate the story, because a lot of like the boss mechanics and stuff don't play out in story mode for whatever reason. They decided to make them trivial, but and these days they make the story battles even more trivial than they used to be. There aren't ones like there are like in Eden Treaty. There are a couple of sticking point bosses where you have to actually have built a team that is semi coherent in order to clear the fight if you're doing it level appropriate. So, but that's not really the case anymore. After that point, pretty much every character is not meta right up until present day, except that there is a new game mode that came out, and the requirements of it are different. Like it's a different team format where you bring like something like 6 strikers and 4 supports. It's a totally different team format, so the team structure is different, and it creates room to use characters who aren't premium and therefore would not make it into a 4-2 format, which is where everything else is. So it does sort of diversify team structures quite a bit, but that's not out in global yet, so I don't know how it works exactly. But yeah, a lot of the characters that are released after the Dress series are geared specifically for that particular mode. Like that's their niche in existence, is to work with that mode. The same way right now during the Hyakuyaku chapter, most of the characters being released to do sonic damage, and it's because the boss, presumably that will appear in the Hyakuyaku chapter, is a elastic armor boss, making sonic damage more relevant. So yeah, yeah. So there's not much going on there. It's sort of we're on the edge of a lot of changes and a lot of meta shifts, but we're not there yet. We're currently just sort of waiting for. Well, I didn't know the NPCs could push those things around. Interesting. The little things that spawn from the Jumpty Dumpty. If an NPC walks through them, they move them around rather than just ignoring them.
Oh, I see.
Or blowing them up. Yeah, so yeah, that's that. Not much going on there. I still find myself starting up FGO and then realizing I don't play FGO. It keeps happening. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll collect my daily whatever. I don't log in every day anymore, so I'm not maintaining a streak or anything. But yeah. Trauma's out, but Trauma's not enough for me to go back to FGO because it's widely held to be the worst interlude chapter in the story. I don't know why, because I never really looked into it, but people don't really like it. And the 5 stars are mostly just okay. Like, Charlemagne is basically exactly on par with Summer Okita Alta, and Roland is sort of like a single target guerrilla version of Gawain, and Constantine the 11th Palaiologos is bad, like the worst 5-star they've made in quite a long time. So yeah, there's not really any reason to go back to that. The exception being, of course, Siegfried's waifu. She's Kriemhild. She's OP. She's a 4-star, and she outpaces most 5-star berserkers in arts context. So yeah, she's probably worth going back for people who are really into playing that game, but I'm not into it right now because they just haven't really been progressing the mechanics. Like they aren't advancing the paradigm at all. Like, it's not as though I'm in favor of power creep, but you can only do the same combat mechanic for so many years before it gets stale. No matter how much you love the world and the characters. Like, just do something. You keep talking about how you need to, but then you never do it. I don't understand. They know the problem. They just aren't addressing it.
They the story was all that game really had going for me. It had a few characters I liked, but my lack of interest in keeping up with all the events turned me off of it pretty quick.
I like them, and some of them are really good and really enjoyable, but you need to dangle some kind of carrot, you know? There's got to be something cool to look forward to and work towards, and the pace of the story had slowed down a great deal. Like, this same thing happened in Japan as well. Like, they lost most of their players on Road to 7, and people didn't come back because they waited too long and they just lost interest. The content cadence just slowed down too much, and there's basically like the game is still making money, but they're sort of down to their diehards now because Order Call is being called Order Stall because they don't bring out any decent content. It just seems to take forever for anything to happen. I can't help. There's a paranoid part of my mind that can't help but wonder how much of this is deliberate. Like, they want to wind down FGO for a follow-up, but they can't just kill it outright. They need people to lose interest naturally so that they won't feel gypped.
Yeah. It does that's a risky play doing it that way.
It is a risky play, but so is holding the current course, is it not?
Yeah. I'm not I would not want to be one on the DreamWorks team or whoever owns it now that has to make that call because they have just some fundamental problems with their game system and the way that the classes are set up with their card combat.
Yeah, well, they're fundamental problems now because it's all gone to seed. Like, back in the thing that people need to remember is that FGO is an ancient gacha by comparison to most of them on the market today.
When did it come out? 2013?
And it's held on to all of its old issues. It was sort of, it was pretty ritzy at the time, but it hasn't moved with the times at all. So yeah, it's definitely got some issues to deal with and doesn't seem to know how to deal with them, which makes me wonder if it's on purpose that they're not. But yeah, I suppose it's only of sort of casual interest to me now what they decide to do, since I'm not actively engaged with it anymore. I mean, I would have liked to be. I've spent a lot of money on it over the years, but it's stopped repaying me in terms of entertainment because, not only did they slow the content cadence down, but they also announced in JP that they were stopping doing reruns, which just opens up even bigger holes in the calendar. And I'm not even sure, like, why would you do that? Why would you slow your content cadence down when you are already running into a lull in player interest, unless you were trying to wind the whole product down? That's why I'm paranoid about it.
Yeah. I guess the real question is, are they actually going to go with a full sequel replacement if they do wind it down, or
I don't know. Like, it's sort of down to whims of Nasu at this point.
Yeah, I mean, well, even if he wants to do that, the more sensible course of action may be to let it rest for a while after you kill it, but announce something is coming, and then just let it sit with no game for a while to let the sour taste of later FGO kind of fall out of people's mouths.
Yeah, it definitely needs a rest. I think. I think that just surging onwards would be a risk, a very big risk, bigger than the risks that they're taking otherwise. Simply, they don't have the credibility to push forward with the current paradigm. I think because people are only dropping off, people aren't joining now as a general rule. So yeah. Anyway, that's that. In the Hoyoverse, Genshin have not made much progress in Genshin. I talked about last week making progress in the Sumeru story, but I haven't had time to do anything else since. I'm sort of looking forward to it, and I can't really do want to push forward into Fontaine. Like, is the Fontaine story at least of the caliber of the Sumeru and some, in your opinion?
I think I liked Sumeru better, but I would say they're comparable.
So you say you reckon you like it as a matter of preference rather than quality,
Yeah.
right? I mean that's encouraging, but yeah, I'd like to move forward and see that story as well, especially if Clorinda is decent. I'll probably pull her so that I've got a ringer because my group needs a ringer badly. I need
Clorinda's
someone who can march in there and kill everything.
Yeah, if Clorinda is good, hopefully she gets some screen time in the current patch because she doesn't have no screen time in the main story, but she could do with a lot more for her relation to Navia, who Navia alongside like Nuvolette and Farina are like the major characters of
So, but she's almost certainly going to get a character story, right?
yeah.
Like they always trot that out, so maybe that's where it'll be. And the character stories seem like they sort of generally climb in quality as time goes by, release over release.
Hmm.
But yeah.
Actually, oh
So
no, that's Sino that got a character story. I'm like, did they already release her? I saw a purple thing in there. Oh, that's Sino. He got an act 2.
there's three characters coming out over the course of the next patch, the 4.7, being Clorinda, Seguin, and Sethos. I do not know who these people are because I haven't done Fontaine yet.
Sedgwin is an adorable idiot.
I thought that those things. I thought the Melusines were creatures, not people. But she looks like a people.
Yeah, well, that's never explained in the story either. It just she shows
Probably
up.
in her character story then.
Yeah, I'm assuming they will get into that in the character story because that's kind of a big red flag because that's how the Melusines are. They are not worldly people, or animal mitten-handed things, and they're kind of dumb, like a lot dumb. And Sedgwin fits all that criteria, except she's not an animal person that has mitten hands.
Yeah, she's upgraded Chi-Chi, I guess, since she's a healing munchkin.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't know how she's going to play out in terms of use, especially considering like Fontaine's already sort of had a premier support character in Farina, who I think is going to be on the same banner rotation as Clorinda, which is kind of cruel since I wanted to roll for Farina as well. I mean, Farina seems sort of like weirdly like kind of a loser in some ways in the context of Tevat, since she doesn't seem to really. She seems like a bit of a like from what you can see of her from as of a great distance, having not done the Fontaine story. She seems sort of a bit more of a paper Archon than the others.
There is something going on with her, but if I tell you anything about it, it'll be spoiled. She isn't. She is legit sees the actual Archon, but there are
Yeah,
a whole bunch
but
of asterisks about her reign and what's going on in Fontaine.
I mean, all I'm saying is that she seems like a paper Archon. Like she's definitely the Archon because she has the oomph for it. So presumably she has the gnosis for it as well. But like everybody knows that Morax is God in Liyue. And Barbatos has a cathedral, even if Barbatos is a lush. And
Well, you're currently trying
there's
to blow up the pillar that is on the right staircase or cathedral.
and there is no question in anybody's mind in Inazuma that the Raiden Shogun is in charge. Nahida seems to have a bit more of a curious position in that Nahida doesn't seem all that popular in Sumeru as where I am in the story.
Her
But
mommy
at
was.
least everybody pays lip service to her being the Archon, but even failing that, the people of Sumeru do definitely still worship the Dendro Archon, even if they don't necessarily worship the current one. In Fontaine, Farina just seems to sort of be a celebrity. She seems to be too much of an airhead to wield any actual power, but unlike Barbatos, she doesn't occupy a position in society where that would make sense. Because I presume that the Hydra Archon is supposed to be the Archon of Justice.
Yep.
She just seems to sort of prance about rather than be justicey.
You missed.
I did miss.
You lit the bushes on fire.
Well, it was going to happen. Things just catch on fire when Clee's around. What can I say?
Nikita comes to visit Mondstadt and just sees this little terrorist blowing everything up.
I think Clee needs more screen time. Like, Clee probably holds the record for minor character who is mentioned the most but appears the least. Because everybody in Mondstadt knows Clee and alludes to Clee, and Clee's mentioned in heaps of quests. And she was mentioned in the alchemy quest, I believe, just sort of offhandedly about how it would be too dangerous to involve her in things. She was mentioned in the cat quest about how it would be too dangerous to involve her in things. Like, she's basically the Unabomber, except never actually gets to appear on screen and do anything.
And she's way more adorable than the Unabomber.
Well, that's not hard. But yeah, so I'm interested to get into Fontaine's story because I don't want to get too far behind, especially since they previewed Natlan now, which has spawned an awful lot of whinging online. And this goes back to a discussion. So I mentioned to Ari before the show that I kind of want to just quit Twitter because it's been feeding me garbage and it's starting to taste like garbage too. The thing with junk food is supposed to taste nice, but Twitter stopped feeding me. Like, the algorithm just seems to become more and more schizophrenic with each passing day and seems to skew on these wild tangents now. They must have made some adjustments to it because it's no longer the stable, reliable thing that I was used to. Nowadays it's like all sensationalist garbage, and having detected my playing of Hoyoverse games, the algorithm has just been feeding me like Genshin community slop. And the Genshin community is arguably the worst gaming community in the world.
Mm-hmm. All gaming communities are bad on Twitter, but the Genshin community is how can I put this without getting us banned from YouTube? There's a thing that is above the wood on your floor that's kind of soft, and if you rub your socks on it, you generate static electricity. If you were to eat that, and there were 2 girls involved in the room, and those 2 girls were literally every single potential 2 Genshin girl characters that were ever next to each other, you would get a rough idea of what they think of the Genshin fan base.
Frankly, it's just a mercy that there are fewer male characters, because if there weren't, then there would be proportionally more of that material. Anyway.
Oh, you should see the Alf Hatham pop-ups whenever they show up on HoYoLab. Him and his boy are super gay, but they're supposed to be food. Yeah, his roommate are supposed to be Fujibait though, at least. But at least they are actual bait for that kind of crap. They're the only type of bait for that crap. But
regardless, I'm getting fed all kinds of garbage, and that is just included, among other things, a huge amount of whinging about Natlan. So it seemed to me that the Genshin community had already decided what Natlan was, and now that the preview doesn't conform to their expectations, and it sounds like their expectations were something like Elden Ring. Not really sure why or how they derived this, but it's actually more like it's more like Yooka-Laylee than it is like Elden Ring. Yes, it is exactly as colourful as everywhere else in Genshin Impact, and for some reason people are surprised by this, and it involves riding on dinosaurs.
Were they expecting some kind of like autumn grass slightly dying but still alive yellows and like golds and browns?
I think they were literally expecting Mordor, based on the way people are talking. But regardless, people are unhappy about Natlan, and they have no reason to be unhappy about Natlan because they haven't played it. They're just getting upset, because apparently just getting upset about things is all Genshin's community ever does when they aren't cooming. So,
and oh boy, yeah. that was the reason I totally cut Twitter off forever. Like I don't the safe search will not save you. My block list has gotten
so long over the last couple weeks. Like, it's just block. Oh my goodness. Elon, fix your shit.
Like
we were onto a good thing for a bit there, but you just seem to have let go of the reins.
Yeah, Elon hadn't quite taken over by the time I completely abandoned social media. But My last holdout was occasionally checking Twitter around the time Endwalker was, and I searched for Final Fantasy 14 FFXIV on the Twitter search bar. Safe,
should have done that, man.
safe search will not save you. And at that point, when I saw a whole bunch of people's fetishes I never wanted to know even existed, about their cat grills and bunny grills, and Lalafels probably, I closed that Twitter and said, nope, we are done. I will make the once a year post on here if I accomplish something, and never, ever, ever check and see if it gets interaction.
I'm really curious as to whether anybody in that community has a sense for what the word canon means. Because it seems to me that canon is anything that happens in their imagination.
Now, this has become a problem with fan bases in general. I found for any game like Genshin that gets big enough and has something that resembles a story attached to it, where people they're so sex brained that any loose interpretation of whatever their preferred view on sexuality is, they if they can project it onto a character, that's now canon to them, because people are so devoted to the sex being the center of life, basically.
I mean, it's not like the writers have not encouraged it. I mean, they are of that generation as well, and in a lot of cases, they're happy to bait it because they know that that sort of thing is good marketing. And so, but they're always careful not to be explicit because a lot of these, CCP based companies are not able to promote that type of thing. So they're always going to keep it on the down low, just feed enough to bait people in. But they still won't put it in there explicitly. It's not actually there. They know exactly how much fuel is required to supercharge people's imaginations without needing to actually incorporate anything in there. And I keep seeing it in all kinds of places, right? And then people's expectations rubbing up against reality and finding that it's not, it doesn't quite match, and then they find bizarre methods of explaining it all away. It's all a very strange phenomenon. Like when I was sort of like the age of these people, like mid-teens, I presume, or at least that they stopped stopped aging mentally in that age. Shipping was something that people argued about in context of how credible it was.
I never jumped on or paid much attention to the shipping nanigans when I was a teen. I was much more.
It was not that I was interested in it; it's that it was inescapable if you spent any reasonable amount of time online in circles associated with anime. You were going to see it,
Yeah,
for everything. Like whether it was like if you watched any of like the big three shonens, there was a haze of shipping commentary surrounding it. But the thing is that the character of the shipping commentary was always, oh, I think that this particular relationship is more probable or more credible because of the way these characters have these types of chemistry and they interact with each other in these ways, and so on and so forth. Which, I mean, it's not necessarily a healthy way to spend your brain cycles, but at least it involved reason in some way. But it seems like that whole thing has metastasized, and what they have now is that the people in these communities will decide this is the ship that I am going to promote because it serves this particular progressive political agenda to do so, and I am going to try and destroy the life and livelihood of anybody who disagrees with it. And this is like the whole chain of logic.
yeah.
Nobody says anything about the actual characters themselves anymore. They just declare that it's obvious, and anybody who disagrees is a bigot and should have their life destroyed.
Now, there are plenty of fun ways you can interpret the character. You don't need shipping or sex even. Like here's a little 4-coma comic of Klee and Nahida at the cathedral. Klee is visiting the cathedral in panel 1, swinging on her swing set. The next panel, she has a shocked expression, and there's a big boom noise in the background. Cut away to a now collapsed cathedral on fire. Panel 4, Klee pops out happy out of the rubble. The end. New story. No sex involved. Could even be canon. But no. We have to invent sexualities. And I made that up off the top of my head.
Somebody's already writing a Tumblr post about that. Anyway.
Like, why?
Yeah,
Why does it always have to be? Oh, I know why. Okay, let me rephrase that. I know why it always has to be sex crap. It's because it's just totally infected the culture right now.
I think that it's not. I think it's not just that it's infected the culture. I think that it's because it's post-cultural infection, and the uncertainty is starting to rise up. You know how if a person engages in a risky course of action that they know is risky, at some point you've got to sort of pass the activation energy for engaging in it, and then in the immediate aftermath, what you're going to do is you're going to try and justify your decision to yourself. Because the uncertainty of whether you made the right decision or not will start to rise up within you. And I think that what's going on in this case is that they're trying to project justifications onto the world around them by making everything conform to the risky, nonsensical worldview that they've decided to adopt. And the only way that they can justify that they are being rational is by making it be everywhere. So in order for them to assume the, alphabet people-brained approach to the world, where it's not, if it was something as simple as sex being everywhere, you could deal with that, you could dial it back, because that has happened multiple times in history. The problem is that it's not about just being coon-brained seeing sex everywhere. The problem that it's about seeing alphabet people everywhere. Because those are not the same thing at all.
Yeah.
One of them is an overplaying of something natural, and the other one is strictly unnatural. It only has destructive effects. And that's the thing that they are promoting. And because it is destructive, because we are going to move into, we're going to be moving very shortly into a generation of destroyed people who all decided to climb on the Troon train, and now their lives are ruined. We're moving into that space now. Those people are going to start realizing what they've done to themselves, and the amount of propaganda and snow job required to suppress the fact that that's happening is going to become more and more egregious. And the people that have backed those points of view are going to become more and more aggressive about trying to post facto validate their decision to support it. Because it's going to be, they're going to look like Joseph Mengele in the aftermath. And they can't afford that. They wouldn't be able to survive that. So they aggressively pursue twisting the entire world around them into conformity with this point of view. And that's what is at the root of all of this, I think. They need that validation. They need to see it everywhere. This is not because there's anything intrinsically about alphabet people relationships that they like. It's because having them there is a validation. So everything has to be distorted to fit it.
Yeah.
And, that draws everything into the nexus in its way. So everything has to become sexualized because everything has to be recontextualized.
Yeah.
It's not sufficient to let it be what it is.
Yeah. Clea and Nahida can't just be friends blowing up the cathedral in Mondstadt. No. We gotta find some way to make them in lesbians or future lesbians.
But the thing is that it can be reified in some respects, because once you create an apparent market demand, producers of products will attempt to fill it. So they will play into it to some extent, and you can see that to some extent. There is a brief black screen text only gag in Star Rail, for instance, which is alluding very directly to the Bronya Sele shippers and their obsession. It's a little bit backhanded, because it's the mechanic is in Penacony there's this device that will allow you to glimpse somebody else's dream, and the Trailblazer can use this to see one of Bronya's dreams, and the dream has a few lines of extremely suggestive text, and then it becomes immediately apparent that Bronya's dream is about Sele helping her move some boxes around the office.
I'm reminded of the scene in Berseria where Velvet is cleaning the room, and the party is hearing noises from inside the room. They don't know what to do.
It's that type of scenario, anyway. So it's an illusion, but it also sort of tongue in cheek points out that they have written the scenario over top of reality and reinterpreted it. But they have the thing is that you can take that two ways, right? You can take that as the creators are ribbing the fan base for superimposing this torrid relationship between Seele and Bronya over top of reality. You could also read it as a lot of the fans have, of an endorsement from the writers, which I don't think it's an endorsement. It doesn't read like an endorsement. It's just an acknowledgement that there are people that think this way. Because if you look at the writing elsewhere, like in the board game, the Trailblaze board game that you play, it makes it pretty clear that Seele and Bronya bicker often, even in public, in a contentious way about issues on which they disagree. They are very much friends from different worlds with different opinions about the way things should be done. And they care very much about each other, but definitely is presented in explicit terms only in a platonic way. Because they barely know each other. That's the reality. Though you haven't played through all of Belobog yet.
No.
But while Bronya and Seele do warm up to each other over the course of the story when they meet, and it's sort of implied that they may have known each other as small children, and in fact, because of the way the Hoyo's verse works, it's almost certain that they did. There's literally nothing romantic in there. They are people from different worlds who have found common ground and are learning to get along. And that's where the story more or less ends. There's a whole bunch of other stuff superimposed on top. And the part of that is because, like I said, of how the Hoyoverse works, right? Bronya and Seele are based on Bronya and Seele from Honkai Impact 3rd. The thing is, in Bronya and Seele in Honkai Impact 3rd were orphans that grew up at the same orphanage, and Bronya was the big sister among the kids there, and Seele was the shy girl who would hide in a chest and cry every time she got upset or scared, and Bronya would have to find her and comfort her. And so they have a very close sisterly relationship because they grew up together, which has been creatively reinterpreted by the fan base as they are definitely in lesbians. Despite the fact that everything that you see depicted, I don't know the story of Honkai Impact 3rd. I've seen a few chapters of it, but insofar as all of the interactions between Bronya and Seele go, they are all very explicit familial type of interactions, and are presented as such with the language of such. Except that because it had become that had become toxified in that fandom, it got passed on to Star Rail as well, and it continues to spread. So, yeah, these are all things that keep getting superimposed on it, and it keeps being passed along from instance to instance. And once one of these things becomes rooted in the fandom, everything starts to be interpreted through that lens. Like there is no character in Star Rail that the fandom hasn't decided is in some kind of unnatural relationship with some other character. That's every single one.
I am not going to do any exploration to confirm this theory. However,
Trust me, it's not worth it.
I have a thunk. I have a thunkin' theory that anytime whoever the preferred Coomer artist, probably some video artist with Blender or something, makes an animation that fits one of these degenerate boxes, that's how it becomes solidified in canon.
I'm not sure. I don't think it's actually that. I don't think it's actually that explicit. I think that it's just something that is moving through the hive mind online. Like people just form a consensus of validation of their point of view, and then the hive mind propagates it, and it becomes acknowledged as the one and only truth. Purge the heretic. I think that that's basically all that there is to it. I don't think it needs any help. I don't think it needs supportive media or anything like that, because it seems like they've been able to get this far without needing any media. As far as, you know, producing the original media is concerned, they already arrived there. Like, it's sort of like a product serving a need at that point. Like, they're never going to outright shoot down one of these things by word of God, because it's not good marketing to do so, especially when you have an interest in leaving all these things open-ended. It's really funny when they do counter-signal, though. Counter-signaling is hilarious. I've really enjoyed that, especially like the counter-signaling, which in the promo video for the whatchamacallit, the concert, the Star Rail concert, had the sort of the brief scene of Kylus and Robin together in secret. And it's sort of like, this is like a direct counter signal to the everyone is in lesbians or whatever point of view. And it upset a lot of people. Watching these people get upset is actually profoundly entertaining, because once you cast it in light of what they're actually upset over, it becomes very, very funny. Anyway, I don't know if there's ever going to be an end to this type of fandom. It would be nice if it was, but I think that it's sort of a historical, it's a historical truth that it always arises like this, even you know, throughout ancient history.
I can guarantee you, if
it just doesn't propagate as fast.
If it does get replaced in our lifetime, we will like what it's replaced with even worse.
Probably. Anyway, it is definitely a thing, and it's a frustrating thing, and it's a good reason to delete Twitter.
Yeah,
at least I like Twitter for various purposes. Like, there are certain things that it does very well as far as aggregation is concerned. But anytime I listen to Twitter's recommendations of what I should look at, I'm immediately appalled.
In general, I have just been overall much like quitting World of Warcraft. Now, I was never into social media really to begin with, but excising it completely is a thing that I open as an independent website ever. And I only go to Twitter if there's media linked to me on a different website. That to like, okay, I guess I gotta drag my butt over to Twitter to watch whatever this clip is. But other than that, never ever go open Twitter, and life is just happier. Like, I'm out of the
I used to... God.
I'm out of the loop on what the internet commentariat has to say about stuff all the time. But I found more and more, I just don't give a crap about what they say, and they're usually wrong in the long run anyway.
Yeah, for me, it was just a primary news aggregator, because I don't have another news aggregator. Like, it used to be that on the right, people would use Drudge as a news aggregator, but that sort of, the bloom's sort of fallen off of that flower.
He's been huffing his own farts for years now.
Yeah. When I say used to, remember, we're both old now, so that's old man time.
Oh yeah, like I'm talking.
When either of us says used to, we mean a decade ago.
Man.
But yeah. Anyway, so I am currently thinking to push forward with the Genshin story, since I have the bulk of the content in Star Rail up to date now. In Star Rail, I did one of the events, the Clocky filming event thing, which is a very weird text-based event, essentially. It's not the most fun I've ever had with an event, that's for sure. It wasn't that interesting from an engagement point of view. It was interesting from a lore point of view. And I think that people who are really into the lore of Penacony will probably enjoy it quite a bit. Because one of the things about Penacony is that a lot of its history is sort of purposefully obfuscated and kept ambiguous. And as such, in order to try and preserve the history, the Watchmaker has, in the process of being involved in the production of the Penacony cartoon series Clocky, or in Japanese Clockboy, pretty much has managed to tell the history of Penacony in allegory using his sort of like hit cartoon. And it's sort of interesting trying to work out how the allegory works, because it's never quite spelled out all the way. So you're trying to work out, okay, so who is Clockboy, who is Boss Stone, who are the factions at play here, and you can get sort of an interesting window into the history of Penacony by working out like who represents who. Like Clockboy is obviously Mikhail Legwork, and Boss Stone is probably an IPC representative of some kind. The old man tree guy is probably one of the representatives of the family. Like, you can work out the history through allegory, like how would you tell this story in a children's cartoon format type of thing. So from a lore perspective, it's quite interesting. From a gameplay perspective, it's not terribly interesting, but I think that you could probably develop it into one.
Put a pin in that concept. It'll be relevant later in Genshin.
I see. Anyway, yeah. So it's sort of an interesting story, and they give you some ability to play out alternate stories as well. Like if you structure the story differently, if you edit the film differently, you can come to different conclusions, and it basically gives you sort of like several of the what if bad ends that would have happened in Penacony if they had taken certain routes that might have seemed easy or advisable at the time, but how things might have gone if they had done so. And of course, like the final bad end is sort of like the Lotus Eater machine type thing, where everybody ends up in this sort of like wasting away in an idyllic world where they never have to worry about anything and never challenged by anything or anything like that. They just end up in this sort of like permanent paradise and everybody wastes away type of thing, which is a bit dark for a cartoon, I feel, but it is exactly how it goes in the alternate ending for the final chapter. But yeah, then that's got its own allegorical implications as well, and it's sort of interesting that the watchmaker would have animated this alternate ending, because you aren't producing any new content in the way this event works. This is basically the event story is that you're editing together pieces of film that the watchmaker had made before he passed away, and putting them together into the final form of the film that he was planning to make. And if he had filmed all these things, it means that there are certain things that did play out that hadn't in his lifetime that he was able to accurately predict. But yeah, there's lots of interesting stuff embedded in there, but it's definitely a Lorehound event and not one for like, it's not going to thrill anybody as a general consumption event. There was also the Boot Hill event, which is basically a set of free Stellar Jade. There's not really much to it. There's little funny clips of things that you get sent on Facebook missions basically to try and track down information about Boot Hill, and so you get to see little clips of the things that he's been up to around the galaxy. Usually no good. I don't know if it's canon or if it's fanon, but I've seen this story going around that the reason why Boot Hill has such ridiculous G-rated swearing in all of his dialogue, I've heard that. Well, so in Star Rail, they mention very, very early on, and then never again because it ceases to be relevant. They mention very, very early on that everybody roaming around the galaxy has a thing called a synesthesia beacon. And the synesthesia beacon is basically the universal translator. So anybody who speaks has their intentions accurately conveyed no matter what the local language is. Like the Babelfish in, what's it, Hitchhiker's Guide has the Babelfish, I think.
Yeah.
So it's the same principle. Due to your intentions being what they are, your communication is accurate. Now, I don't know if it's canon because there's heaps and heaps of canon to Star Rail. Like you would have to spend hours reading everything to try and get what it all is. But I've seen the suggestion floating around online that the reason Boot Hill has such ridiculous dialogue is that he actually used to be so foul-mouthed and impossible to allow children to be exposed to such grotesque language that somebody messed with his synesthesia beacon, so that every time he tries to swear, all that anybody actually hears is, son of a nice lady type cursing.
I see.
And he is basically stuck with trying to be a hard ass, but nobody can ever hear his coarse language. Which I think is an incredibly funny explanation, so I hope it's canon. But yeah, his trailer is out, his character trailer is out, and it's quite amusing. I think the English voice acting is awful, but I like the Japanese voice acting for him. Well, it's unfair to say that the English voice acting is awful. I think it's only awful compared to the Japanese. It's probably serviceable by English voice acting standards, but it's also kind of generic. But there's quite a bit of Michael Jackson references in there as well. Anybody who has a hat is going to end up doing the Dr. Faust thing in Star Rail. It's just inevitable.
If there is one thing that Devil May Cry 5, as its own individual game, rather than an entry in just the Devil May Cry franchise, will leave as a cultural landmark, it will not be its excellent combat. It will not be its wonderful difficulty curve. It will not be its freeform expression of player identity as you play the game. No, none of that crap. It's going to be the stupid Dr. Faust dance.
No, I think I disagree. I think it's going to be the memes generally, because I think that the lawn chair is going to be an enduring cultural icon.
And that's not even part of the game.
I know. But it would not exist without the game.
That is true. Katana next to the lawn chair. Whenever I see that, I don't know why, but as an action video gamer, I just get the feeling of, oh, that is relatable. Like,
it's because you're old.
That is
and sitting in lawn chairs is the thing old people do.
That is the boomer action gamer lawn chair right there. Watching them kids play their Fortnites, they don't know what a real action game is. Oh, you would have judgment nut.
I'm going to have to spend a bunch of time playing Star Rail tomorrow because there's a bunch of objectives that I wanted to hit before the end of the week that I haven't been able to do because I've been so busy during the week. We are currently in Double Drop Simulated Universe time as well for 12 rounds, which I am not really sure what I'll go to, so I'll probably do Frontline Fortress Glamouth because that's like a good generic DPS planisphere that I kind of want for basically all my DPS, so I might do that one. But I also might do Talia, the Third World, because it looks like they're definitely skewing in a kind of a break-centric direction, and I don't have very many good break pieces, and you can build a break team out of nearly anybody if you really want to, because everybody has Harmony MC. So yeah, and so Talia now Scrap Town would be definitely good for Harmony MC, and I should probably build Harmony MC because it'll give me a different team that I've got access to using. But most of my time that I've spent in it has actually been focused more on preparing for the Fushuan banner. So I've been farming up bits of gear that I think will be useful for her and so on and so forth, because I want to build her up quite quickly. And probably will put her on my shared list because I want to have her built to make any team hard as concrete, basically. Or so I'm hoping. Because I've currently only got relatively soft options as far as preservation characters go, and I don't have any of the premium healing supports. I mean, I have the Dragon Lady, as people call her. She's not great due to the lack of purge, basically. Like, Bilo would be good if she could cleanse negative status effects in any way. I think she would be a really premium choice. But frankly, I generally prefer to use Natasha, even though her numbers are way worse, simply because I know Natasha can cleanse. And usually a battle's going to go real south, largely because you didn't control your debuffs.
Yeah.
No.
All I've got is the Dragon Lady for sustain.
I mean, she's definitely good. She's rated, if you look at a tier list, she's definitely rated higher than Natasha, but I think she's only higher than Natasha in the context where the rest of your team is so built that they can outpace the accumulation of debuffs that certain enemies have.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to pull for Fushuan. don't know whether or not I'm going to pull for her signature light cone. Like, her signature light cone is not necessary, but like Fu Xuan is a character that I really liked. And she's likely not to see much play in the future, I don't think. Her character design, like from a systems perspective, the design of her abilities is very evergreen. Like, I don't see her getting scaled out of existence really very quickly, because that would scale a lot of characters out of existence really quickly as well. So I expect that she's going to be a good long-term investment, and I'm really fond of the character generally. She doesn't get that much screen time, but she's quite likable. If you're at the sort of person who is stuck high up in management but not with enough power to make major decisions, and yet you've got a bunch of truculent subordinates who you have to try and keep a rein on, but always seem to be trying to laze their way out of things, then you will definitely feel an affinity for Fu Xuan.
Seems oddly specific.
Well, that's her job. Like, her job is to basically know things and control lazy subordinates. Yeah. Anyway, so Star Rail is sort of in a holding-ish pattern until the next patch comes out. So the next banner cycle is going to be Boot Hill and Fu Xuan, and the banner cycle that is expected to follow that is Firefly and X. People are saying Huohuo, and Huohuo is a character that I'd also like to roll on. She's definitely in the Dotaru category, not the waifu category. But although, you know, opinions may vary given the fan base. And also the fact that she's a Shansho native, meaning she's probably like 2,000 years old at this point, since people on the Shansho waifu seem to age up to a certain age and then just sort of stop for a few thousand years and then end up having to be incarcerated for having gone insane. That just seems to be the life cycle. But yeah, she's supposed to be next. Then after that is Jade, who is, and you know, X. We don't know who else she'll get paired with. Maybe she'll be paired with Huohuo. Most people think that Huohuo and Ranmei are going to be the next two reruns to go with Firefly and Jade, and that's largely because Ranmei is so universal that everybody who didn't roll on her is really kicking themselves right now, because she works in so many different teams. Like, if you need a Harmony to plug a gap in your support, you can jam Ranmei in there and she'll do the job just fine. She doesn't specialize to any particular team, but she's like the waiver, basically. She's the waiver velvet of Star Rail. You can just jam her into any team and she'll be a premium support. Huohuo is quite similar. She's she adds way more fragility to a team up front due to taking up the preservation / abundance slot, but she also tends to accelerate the team's performance pretty substantially because she buffs both energy regen and attack. So she can basically makes the team's engine spin faster. So yeah, she's also a sort of like a premium support. So bringing those back when people are freshly kicking themselves for not having rolled on them is a good way of getting a lot of people to spend a bunch of money. Like, even I'd be tempted to spend money if they put both if they put Huohuo's banner up at the same time as like Ranmei and Firefly, because I'm really tempted to roll for signature light cone for Ranmei. I've got Ranmei already, but I use her so much of the time, particularly in Simulated Universe, that having her be stronger would just be a net benefit to all my teams. And Huohuo is definitely a very, very good sustain for dot teams that run Kafka and Black Swan, which is like my main Simulated Universe team.
It looks like terrible things have happened to her. She looks terrified.
She's her thing is that she's scared of everything, basically. If you do Shansho Lofu and then you do the ghost hunting story after that, then that's basically it's all about Huohuo. It's a really fun story. It's my favorite event that the game's had.
She's crying in most of these pictures.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that she has the talent, she just doesn't have the confidence. She's not like an overwhelmingly talented genius, but she's talented enough to do her job. The problem is that she doesn't have any confidence whatsoever, and she's backed by an incredibly powerful energy entity, but she spends so much time squabbling with it that they don't work together most of the time.
Well, it looks like it's stealing her food.
It's her tail. He's quite the character as well. I don't want to find out what he sounds like in English because it'll probably ruin my perception of him. Anyway, yeah. So Jade is going to be the next Step on Me Mommy character, so it's going to flick a lot of people's switches, I guess. But I expect that Jade will probably be paired with Huohuo for the contrast, and that Firefly will be paired with Ranmei for the contrast. Every leaked report of every successive modification to Firefly's beta abilities suggests that Firefly is going to be comically overpowered, which worries me a great deal because I don't think we need more comically overpowered characters in the game after Acheron came out. Jade is a lot less clear, but Jade is very, very obviously built to work with Aventurine and Topaz and Numby and Dr. Ratio in a very cookie cutter team where you've got 4 IPC aligned characters all in the same team, and that I expect that that's going to be a very meta follow-up attack team. So I expect that they're going to introduce a bunch of new relics or planet ornaments that will encourage use of follow-up attack as well.
Oh man,
I don't really have
the
much
Step
in that
on Me
regard.
Mommy so hard with Jade. They have some zombie looking thing crawling up right to her feet in perfect Step on Me range.
Yeah. There seem to be an awful lot of Step on Me Mommy characters in Star Rail compared to Genshin. I can't help but wonder if there's somebody in that design team with odd proclivities.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's a more acceptable route they could go than some of the other routes.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, there's just not that many lolly characters in Star Rail, comparatively speaking.
Yeah, there's Dragon Girl, and there are surprisingly few in Genshin. It's just we happen to play two of the plus Yao Yao. We happen to play 2 plus Yao Yao. So they're very prevalent to us, but there are surprisingly few midget girls in Genshin. There's like 5 or
Given
6.
what the player base is like, I think we should just say a prayer of thanks.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah. So that's that. Yeah, I got to finish off a bunch of stuff in that game tomorrow probably. I haven't finished. Well, I don't think that I'm going to be able to finish Memory of Chaos because my team building is too sloppy and my relics are also too sloppy. But I would like to get further than stage 7. I reckon I can probably get up to about stage 10 maybe. I might be able to squeak out 1 star on stage 10. So Memory of Chaos is basically Spiral Abyss for whatchamacallit, for Star Rail in terms of there are stars to earn. And then there's Pure Fiction, which is a slightly different variant on it. And they are going to introduce another game mode, which is going to be slightly different. It's going to be more sort of like a boss rush focus type thing, which is going to basically allow a lot of hunt characters who haven't got a lot of screen time the opportunity to make it onto some teams, because generally speaking with like Pure Fiction strongly favors AoE. Like you want to build Herta, you want to build Himiko, you want to build the Serval, you want to build characters that can do mass damage to lots of enemies at once when it comes to Pure Fiction. But there's really no equivalent right now for characters like Dr. Ratio, who can just absolutely pummel a single target. And so they're going to be introducing a new game mode soon that will be focused on boss rushing. But the upshot of all this, number 1, is that you've got heaps of stuff that's available weekly to do. But number 2, also that functionally, like if you have the time to do it all, and it seems like they're trying to jam so many game modes into Star Rail that you don't have time to do them all. So it's basically a matter of overcoming your own psychology about what level you're going to compete at and in what game modes. The whales, of course, will try and do it all, but ultimately they're just showering you in Stellar Jade availability, like constantly. Like Memory of Chaos and Pure Fiction are basically, that's like there being two Spiral Abysses that have sort of like staggered overlapping seasons. So you can, if you are good at those modes, and I'm not, I haven't built teams for both of them yet. I've sort of got like 75% to 90% of two teams put together that are tuned up for them. So I can't quite make it all the way through because my relics are crappy, but I'm getting close to it. But if you are tuned up, you've just got like a really, really robust Stellar Jade income, to the point where basically you can have like sort of like one character that you want from virtually every pair that come out. And if you're going to go for signature light cones, that's still whale territory. But in terms of characters, you've actually got the power to roll on quite a few. You're going to lose some 50-50s, but you should be able to flesh out your roster quite nicely if you are just playing the game well, if you're team building well, if you've got decent relics and you've tuned the combinations of them well. You don't even need to do the wacky crap like speed tuning and that. Like, there are people who can auto their way through Memory of Chaos and Pure Fiction. In fact, there are some people who only play that way simply because, like, a lot of content creators are auto only people because they have to do so much playing of those games and there's just not enough time in the day to play manually. But yeah. Anyway, moving on. I dabbled extremely briefly in Wuthering Waves this week.
Oh, I have the install file sitting in my downloads. I didn't install it, but I downloaded it.
I don't like it. And I don't like it in a sort of a petulant child type of don't like it. There are good reasons to not like it, but there are also bad reasons not to like it. Basically, to me, it feels, whenever you're not like actually in combat against something, it feels like an early beta. It's just everything about it just feels a little bit jank. Now, part of this might be that I clicked on the American server, since I usually do, because that's the one that Ari's going to go on. When realistically, for better performance, I might have been better off clicking on the Southeast Asia server. When it comes to games like this, the amount of difference that makes is highly variable. So without me trying all of the different servers side by side to work out what things are affected by latency and what things are not, I can't really say for sure that it's contributing to it, but it felt jank. Everything felt a little bit jank. From the mint picking to the navigation and talking to people, and everything felt a little bit off. There were also other things, like really brain dead things that made it feel like an early beta. Like, I may be retarded, but I was unable to find invert camera on the y-axis.
If this is not an option,
I
cannot play this game.
I went into the ini file and I edited the function of the y-axis on the controller so that it was inverted. But if I actually had to do that, if there's not actually if I'm not actually retarded and there's just no option, that's incredibly stupid.
Yeah,
it's a third-person action game. Like 50% of the population play with the y-axis inverted.
Yeah, I especially those of us that are older, because guess what? When they first put analog sticks on the original PlayStation controller and created the DualShock, like not even PS2, the OG one, and you push that little analog button to turn them on. Do you know what the right stick was defaulted to in like 85+% of games? With no option to change it? Inverted. So you know what all of us boomers are used to playing? Inverted.
Yeah, so I may be dumb. Maybe it's there and I just scrolled past it like 25 times. But I went into the ini file and I edited the function of y-axis on gamepads. That was what I did. And this seems incredibly dumb.
Funnily enough, the other inversion story I found was actually Halo's fault. Because the way its tutorial is set up for setting up camera controls, where he goes, look at the light, good. Okay, now look at the other light, good. Now, I'm going to invert your controls. You tell me if this works. And people that have never used a joystick before when they first tried Halo's, like the first joystick game, wound up preferring inverted controls because they accidentally kept inverted controls on from that tutorial because it doesn't prompt you to turn them back off after you try them.
When I my first attempt at Halo was when it was already on PC, so I can't relate.
Yeah, but
But
inverted controls are a big deal for me. Any game that gets them wrong or doesn't include an option for them at all is an immediate. I don't know about this.
But I mean, you see, the dumb thing is, if there's no option, that's really stupid because I was able to go to the innie and just change the sign to negative on the effect of using the y-axis of the stick,
Mm-hmm.
and that was enough. Which means that change sign should not be a hard thing to hard code into the menu, but I could not find it for the life of me. Anyway, by default, you're forced to start with English voice acting, and it was an atrocity. The only advantage to English voice acting is that they use the Chinese pronunciation of the characters' names, which is the way that it's romanized. In the Japanese, of course, they use the Japanese pronunciation of the same characters, so the names are a little bit jank, and you've just got to get used to, oh, right, I forgot that's read that way in Japanese as opposed to Chinese. But yeah, generally speaking, for like tutorial battles, because I didn't spend long playing the game, I just didn't have the time and it wasn't gelling with me. The combat feels reasonably good. It gets a little bit it feels a little bit what's the term? QTE at times.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I've heard, that fades into the background pretty quickly, and they present it in a QTE sort of way early on to sort of like induct you into the mechanics, and then it's as you move up in difficulty, it becomes more of a naturally blended part of the game to use, counters and parries and dodges and that sort of thing, rather than presenting it in a QTE-esque way.
So we're like, given that we're playing action heavy games here, you know how in the Credo boss fight in Devil May Cry 4 he chucks spears at Nero, and you can grab the spears if your timing's really good and chuck them back at him. Are we talking like that has a QTE prompt at the start, and then eventually they fade the QTE out?
I don't know if they fade it out, but there's sort of like it's almost sort of like a rhythm game style presentation of it. Like when enemies charge certain moves that are counterable, they will charge it and there'll be a visual effect that is sort of like a ring closing in on another ring type of thing. And when they overlap rhythm game style, if you attack at that point, then it will counter. So if you're spamming your attack, you're going to miss it. You need to recognize that it's going into an attack animation, break your combo string, and then re-engage at the time when it's going to be as a counter, and then that will chunk their stagger bar. Because you want to stagger them so they go into a down state, and then you'll get free TOT, and you'll also, in some cases, you also seem to get sort of like a special attack on a downed enemy, although that doesn't seem to be universal. It seems to be only for certain bosses and stuff. But yeah, generally speaking, the combat feels quite nice. The problem is that nothing else in the game feels nice. Everything looks very beta. So the only way I can explain it, everything looks kind of weird. Aesthetically, my preference in terms of aesthetics is much more on the Genshin and Star Rail side of things, like very stylized, very colorful. This is a lot more desaturated generally, and the drawing style is extremely different. It's closer to, well, I mean, it's Chinese style. It's not Japanese style. So it's much closer to Korean than it is to Japanese, if you want to draw a comparison to something. Everything tends toward the more naturalistic. So you have a lot of characters that just have black hair with adornments, as opposed to, having Technicolor hair within 5 minutes. English voice acting is cringe. Ugh. My goodness. I switched to Japanese as soon as I had the opportunity to download it. It's cringe, but it's not exceptionally cringe. It's the same sort of normal level of cringe you normally get. But yeah, it is what it is. Pronunciation of Chinese words is okay in the English. It's not existent in the Japanese for the aforementioned reasons. Locations, like structurally, you can like the Genshin heritage drips off of it. Like you can tell that every single person involved in developing this played Genshin and were deliberately pillaging concepts from it. Not that I mean to be one of those people who thinks that everything originated with Genshin Impact, but too much of the way things are structured is directly pinched from Genshin, right down to things like changing your party members by pressing the directional buttons on the pad, type of thing.
Yeah. What you call
They
it?
have statues of the Seven. They have teleport points. The statues of the Seven reveal map. Teleport points don't, etc., etc. Like there's a lot of heritage in there that's very Genshin. You've got your glider. You've got your grapple thing, and your grapple thing is identical to the cancerous Inazuma grapple thing. There's no R1 button. Get used to holding L1 and pressing face buttons. It's everything about it feels just very slightly jank. Like if you had spent like another 6 months in development and carefully observing the things that you did that Genshin does that Genshin then stopped doing later, you would have come out with a much more smooth feeling game, I think. In combat, like I said, it feels good. It feels sensible for the most part. But despite the fact that it's clearly, they're retrofitting mass combat in a conventional action RPG to be more tight. But you can still see where the heritage is from. But the everything outside combat just feels a little bit weird and iffy. From an aesthetic perspective, I just don't like the design of the characters quite so much as I do from like the Star Rail ones. Like Baizhu and Ryan May are basically the same character in a lot of ways. Like they're both sort of like the extremely scholarly lady scientist character, and they have a similar sort of approach to aesthetics, and they have a similar sort of demeanor, and they have similar sort of design in a lot of ways. Because it's an archetype, right? It's not that one was copying the other or anything. But like Ryan May was like my first thirst pull ever because I liked her design so much. And Baizhu just more or less leaves me cold. It's not they're designed the same way, but they're drawn in different ways. Like they have the same motifs, they have the same sort of like embroidered accessories and that sort of thing. And normally I prefer long hair to the sort of bob cut that Ryan May has, but no. There's something about the design here. It's just different, and it's to do with the fundamental art style, really.
Does it have
the Chinese approach?
Are you sure it doesn't have to do something with the Goo Dragon?
The Goo Dragon's okay. I can live with the Goo Dragon. I tried the Goo Dragon out for a bit. The Goo Dragon's okay. I don't mind the Goo Dragon. But yeah. Also, their approach to ribbons is inexpert. I know Aristeal is a ribbon connoisseur.
Yes.
I feel like there are places in an outfit where a ribbon belongs, and there are places where, nah, bruh, you're just slapping a ribbon on there for decoration. It doesn't form a part of this outfit.
I do.
And
oh dear.
And there are ribbons like this in Wuthering Waves. Like the most conspicuous one is that Rover, aka Traveler, is a female Rover has a ribbon on the back of her head. It appears to just be glued there. It's not part of her hairstyle. It doesn't fit the rest of her aesthetic. It's just kind of there.
Got like this back side lock behind her ear that just kind of has this ribbon glued to it. She also has just random ones on her attire. Like she's got one on her short shorts that's just kind of stapled on the side.
Yeah, the ribbons, like, they have physics engines, so they do stuff. But they're just kind of there to be ribbons. They aren't part of a cohesive outfit design, and that bothers me for some reason. Even though I'm not like a ribbon fetishist like Aristeal. It still bothers me.
I would hardly call myself a ribbon fetishist, but I do generally fall into the camp of more ribbons is better. Like, what's
But these things are just sort of like wildly slapped on there, and I don't really think that it's cohesive. It's also quite evident that the designer likes big butts and he cannot lie, because every single female character is a little bit heavier in the posterior than they would be in another art style. I think that's my impression anyway. They also generally seem to take their booba pretty seriously. I mean, the character that I like the most is probably the magistrate character. I can't remember her name. No, I don't remember. Junji, I think, something like that. She's about the, or she's. I think I liked her the most in terms of design, although it's a design that I've seen before in various places as well. But she's also probably the only one that wasn't like conspicuously endowed in the booba department outside of the more sort of.
She has a much worse sin, though.
Oh, certainly. I don't like any of the designs in total.
Her belts. She is going up against the as belt.
Well, I mean, it's better to have. I think that you can get away with slapping a random belt on more easily than you can get away with slapping a random ribbon on. But yeah. Overall, I didn't vibe with the aesthetic, man. It's just I didn't like when I played Star Rail for the first time. I was instantly captivated by the design, like across the board. I just liked all of the characters in terms of the way that they have designed the sort of type of person they're clearly expressing themselves to be through their outfits. Whereas the outfits in Wuthering Waves are just not so expressive. The villain ones are. Some of the villain designs are really great. I think that in some cases they're over-designed. In some cases they've favoured 2-color a little bit too hard, and it breaks down the contrast compared to, say, 3-color. Like, red-white is probably my favourite character colour combination, but red-white with a black accent functions better than red-white does, generally speaking. You've got to walk this fine line between doing red-white with accenting to give contrast, because if you just do red-white, nothing else, it can get washed out. Red-white with black allows you to have contrast and to maintain the cohesiveness of the red-white color combination. But you have to be careful not to make it too busy, because once you're at 3-color, you need to make sure that you are sparing with where you add the details. But like the 3-color approach you can find on essentially every Genshin character. Like, let's go through my list. Ningguang has got gold and white and black. So the 3 colors executed. Yai Sakura has white and red and black, or very dark brown, depending on the way you view it. Yunjin has indigo and pink and blue, with the blue providing accenting. Same type of combination for Fischl, but Fischl's heavier on the black. Same with Barbara, blue and white and black. Like they all use 3-color, but they've balanced it very carefully to give a sort of cohesive appearance. In Wuthering Waves, they don't seem to have quite a grasp of the color balance, and they always let one color overwhelm the others, or a pair of colors overwhelm the whole design. So yeah, there are exceptions, of course. There are some where that approach works because of the type of character that it is. Like, I feel like giving predominance to white for the magistrate works really well, because she's supposed to be that sort of character. She's supposed to be slightly ethereal, because she's kind of like she's sort of functionally sort of like a Miko for one of the guardian dragons, as well as being like a political figure. So it makes sense for her to look a little bit more otherworldly, so she should stand a little bit athwart conventional color design. But generally speaking, I feel like their palettes are more washed out overall because of the lack of contrast. I've heard that this is actually exacerbated. I haven't tinkered with this, but I've heard that's actually exacerbated by the default settings, which have the brightness just set too high, meaning that a lot of the contrast is just naturally lost by the color settings that it defaults to. I haven't tested it though. Also, there's a lot of debate about this online, but I fall down in the opinion that they hammer you really hard with capitalized proper nouns in the first few dialogue boxes. Like, people say, oh, but every gacha these days does that. Like Genshin did it. They had heaps of things like visions and so on early on. But no, I'm talking about the first few dialogue boxes where they've got, you've got your resonators and you've got your terminals and you've got your tacit fields and you've got your etc, etc, etc. And in the first 5 minutes, you get absolutely buffeted with all of these proper nouns. Like, I know it's sort of like the business of a gacha to do this kind of thing, but done right, it will engage people with the world building. Done wrong, it will make them switch off because they don't feel like they're involved. They feel like somebody's talking above their heads. And in fact, the game Wuthering Waves actually makes a jab at this at one point, where you have the option as the rover to just say that you just don't understand anything that's being said right now because people keep using these terms all the time. So they recognize that it can be an issue, but I feel like they leaned on it a little bit too heavily. You don't feel very free to explore either the way you do in Genshin. Like in Genshin, when Traveler falls out of the sky, you can basically wander around the countryside at will, pretty much. You can just have a bit of a cruise around and poke around and things and so on and so forth, and they don't put much pressure on you, but they railroad you pretty hard early on in Wuthering Waves. It's not like there's very far to go, but I feel like they lean on it a bit hard. That you don't really feel like an explorer or a participant. You feel like you're just being told what to do at the start. And story events don't have much of a sense of time either. Like, they will tell you, come back a bit later and we'll talk about X or whatever, and you can just immediately click on that person again. Like, there's lots of things that make the pacing feel jank. The next big crime, it seems to, and if you're on English voice acting, maybe this isn't a problem, but there's a massive habit of it cutting off the last line in text boxes. This just seems like poor design or a bug, but it's got sort of like a 4-line text box at the bottom of the screen, but it routinely just does not show you the whole last line and just moves on with the talking. And they did not learn from Star Rail and implement a dialogue log, so you can't go back.
It's been fairly standard in RPGs for a while, at least single player RPGs I found, at least the ones I play. That there's chat log. You can go
if
back.
there's a chat log, it's not a button press to open it up the way it is in Star Rail.
Yeah,
like I don't know where it is, in fact.
Like the trail scans have had it since the Sky games, and it's like up on the it's like left bumper plus up on the D-pad or something.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not there, especially considering how complicated the text is, because they're always using all of these bizarre universe-specific terms. Yeah. Like, you're definitely going to need to review it if you're interested in understanding, but they don't provide the faculty to do so. So, yeah, I think that's also a crime. So, it does have some interesting mechanics, like the whole using Pokemon instead of gear is kind of interesting. By that I mean when you are fighting various, I can't even remember what they're called because they've got some weird in-universe names, but they're monsters. When you're fighting the monsters, there's a chance when you defeat one that it will drop an echo, and the echo is basically an artifact, and it will have stats and it will have an element and it will have special effects that you get when you've got set bonuses activated and that sort of thing. And they also have abilities associated with them that you can bind to your quick buttons. So, you can momentarily use a special ability or whatever. And I think it's an interesting system. Different echoes exist in different rarities, and there's even shinies if you want to pursue them. So the monster collector thing is very present. And I think that that's a better way of motivating people to collect things than just, keep farming until you get the one you want type of thing. I mean, that's what you're going to be doing in effect, but you've also got the secondary motivation to hunt shinies just because they're shiny.
I see.
And yeah, of course, the meme one that everybody's doing is the rave turtle, which is not good per se, but it is also a rave turtle. So yeah.
As you do. Also, I am not intentionally trying to show you shots of Nahida's safety shorts with the camera. I am looking for the sun and trying to track its progress across the sky.
I see.
I think it's directly over our head right now, which is why we can't find it.
Anyway, I have a bunch of pulls in Wuthering Waves that I haven't used because I'm just sort of holding on to them in case the game motivates me to go back. But I honestly don't. I don't think that it's got any particular thing because I don't. I don't consider. I don't consider the combat to be a premium mechanic enough to justify me wanting to play it. So it doesn't really have much for me going back. The things that it has that I think really separated out from Genshin are interesting ones. And one of them, for instance, is the fact that occasionally there's just like really high level creatures kind of roaming around, and you can reasonably kill them because the game is so heavily skill based rather than stat based. Like if your stats are bad, it's just going to take you more time if you're good at fighting, which is something that's absolutely untrue of something like Star Rail, where stats are everything. If your stats are bad, you're going to get shellacked. And Genshin is sort of partway between the two, where stats have a very hefty effect on what you can do, but you still can outplay an opponent. You just won't be able to absorb any hits. But yeah, there's a very heavy skill factor involved, so you can just kill things that massively outlevel you if you're patient and careful. So it's got that going for it. Apparently, you need to get to like what I would say is adventurer level 22, I think, or something before you can do any co-op at all. I'm not quite sure how long that will take, but I think that co-op with really tough action-based bosses with interesting mechanics and complex move sets would actually be really fun. But in order to participate in that, of course, you've got to slog through the rest of the game, which just hasn't done anything to distinguish itself. And I just don't jive with the aesthetic of a lot of the characters. I just like the way characters are designed in Star Rail more, and in Genshin to a similar extent. Although Genshin's are a little bit more simplified than Star Rail's, partly due to necessity given the excessive number of animations that they need compared to Star Rail's ones. But yeah, overall, Wuthering Waves feels like it needed more time in the oven. Not because the combat doesn't function, but because everything that's not the combat feels kind of jank and like it's not quite finished. That it needs some burrs filed off the edges in order to not be an obstruction to enjoyment. I mean, I don't think most of the things that it does wrong are not crimes, aside from the things like a lack of a chat log and the lack of ability to invert the y-axis without editing the ini file. So yeah, I don't really see myself playing much more of it. Maybe if they release a character that is definitely a thirst pull for me, I might think about it. But generally speaking, I'm not particularly enthused. Apparently, this is for this particular developer. This is not an unusual launch at all, and that fans of the particular developer tend to look forward to crap like this since it means more apologems. So, yeah, take from that what you will. Overall, I'm not that fussed about it. Like it's not objectively bad, but it has to steal the spot from other things that I'm doing, and I don't know that it's capable of doing so. It's from what people say, the story for the first few acts really freaking drags, and then it takes off like a rocket Act 5 and 6 of the first chapter. So, yeah, you've got a lot of ground to tread before things start to get really good.
You know, that still probably is better pace and improvement over Mondstadt as long as we don't have the mandatory stealth mission.
I didn't find the mandatory stealth mission was that bad.
Anytime it pops up in the MSQ of Genshin, I feel like I have one of them wheel locks they apply to cars just shoved onto my ankles.
Lol. They have mandatory stealth missions in Honkai Third, from what I've seen, but they all seem to be like trivially easy. Like it's just there for theming and window dressing. It's not there to actually be a challenge. Anyway, I'll leave my week there. I don't really think I've got much else that I want to talk about. I've been stretching like a boss, so
Yeah, we're at 2 hours. I don't actually have very much I think we can tangent on um, at all. Because it sounds like you did more during your week than I did. Because this week for me was awful. It was a surprise awful, but it was awful. I would get in, go to work, do work stuff, get home, sit down, do more work, and just so I could do some video gaming, waddle my booty over to the gold saucer in Final Fantasy to try and take advantage and make it rain. And anytime I got to a stopping point or any way the wind blows or slices right would come up, something that doesn't really require me to pay attention, I would just hop in it. So yeah, that's the vast majority of my week. The little bit of extra this week was demonstrating sheep primacy in Grand Blue Rising for like an hour and a half, a few days after Beatrix came out, and like an hour today. That's literally it. I've been too busy. I've had to come home and just sit down for hours, just answering emails or trying to figure out what the heck a customer wants or put together something I don't have a clue how to put together. And aside from making a hefty amount of like a couple million MGP this week, nothing has happened because I've just been too busy and I have not been able to focus on anything. I mean, literally, all I've done in Final. You might have seen me logged in, and think, no, maybe he's done a little bit of deep dungeons. No, no, no. Been in the gold saucer the whole time, usually AFK, with the game minimized.
that's probably how most of the player base plays that game.
Because I just have had too much garbage going on to focus on anything that required attention. It's been very frustrating this week. I'm getting a whole lot of new problems, but I am getting a few more orders this week that also need attending to. So kind of works out. But yeah, it just kind of smacked me out. And I bet I know why it all happened all at once this week. This weekend is Memorial Day weekend. That means we have Monday off. And it's a federal holiday, which means the banks, the post office, and most private businesses will be closed because there's no point in opening up. So, I bet because Memorial Day weekend was coming up, everybody wanted their crap taken care of immediately, and that's why they started saying we need quotes right now, we need orders put in right now, we need this, that, and the other thing, we need to get submittals sent to the engineer right now, and just everybody decided they needed it all at once. Just it drove me bananas this week with work. But I did make a ton of MGP. I got to a point where I can do the self-land what you call it, leap of faith in like 2.5 minutes now. So that there's progress made on that, I suppose. And the rest of it was the couple hours I've spent on what you call it, on Rising. I mean, I still have fun with Rising. I was a bit out of practice, so I got my booty kicked today going into ranked for the first time in a while for a couple matches, and then I got back on my sheep and we were flocking to the future. But lots of Beatrixes. Not a whole lot to talk about with her. Most of her frame data mirrors pretty closely to Soul Bad Guys. Dash along the ground. awkward speed fireball, uh, DP that has the exact same rising angle as his DP and is super disjointed. And her only gimmick unique to her is when she falls below 30% HP or she lands her command grab, uh, she unlocks the ability for her heavy attacks about once every 10 seconds because the effect will go on cooldown after you land it once. Will put the opponent in extended hit stun. So you get wackadoodle combo routes that aren't normally possible from mid screen with that. But other than that, she's okay. Fine. I see her as a threat to the sheep because she's adorable and a Supergirl failure. And I'm already aligned with the sheep.
Cake. She has cake
She does have cake.
in her cake.
I am already a sheep premicist and firmly on Team Sheep. So I unfortunately cannot sign up to the Beatrix team.
She has donuts.
I'm pretty sure Anila stole the donut. But yes. So yeah, that's really all there is there. I thought there might be more talk about her, but I really haven't sat down and run enough matches to break down any frame data. I'm still figuring out where the holes in her combos are and just getting bopped. And but she doesn't have anything that frustrates me. It's not like her bestie Zeta, where I just get mad when a Zeta knows what they're doing because it's not fun to play every single hit as a 50-50. I mean, the Zeta can be the loser in that 50-50, but you might as well just put the win-loss of the whole matchup as a coin flip. But yeah, there's nothing frustrating about the way she plays. She's fairly honest with her bullcrap. Her fireball can be a little quick, but given the rest of her toolkit and how close it has to go up, the fact that her dashing move makes her go low to the ground so that goes underneath most fireballs is a little weird. But you know what fireball she doesn't slide underneath? Cheap. I saw one try to slide underneath my sheep.
There's not a lot of space between the sheep and the ground, man.
No, sheep are considered a grounded projectile, so they sheep gave her a good bonk. So I did find a couple matches that were funny. I was still getting back in the swing of sheep, and my combo game wasn't particularly great. I got a few. I could get a few full combos once in a while, but I was having trouble getting back in the groove of things. And I ran into a few Beatrixes. One of them was particularly funny. I don't think I actually wound up winning all the rounds. I think we went 1 and 2 full rounds with him winning the last one. But during the second round, he would just jump in at me at the exact same angle, like every time, like 5 times in a row. I'm like, you want to do it again? And just bop him with crouching heavy, dashing light. You want to do it again? And he just kept on doing it. So you got your people that don't really know what they're doing try and Beatrix out, which makes for funny interactions like that. So yeah, that's all I got for Rising right now. I have not sat down and really hammered on the game at all. I want to. I'll always enjoy sitting down to play with it, but I need time to do that. I need to have it set as an active goal, and I need to not be consumed by work to put the kind of effort I need to really sit down and understand a character like Beatrix and how her frame data works and how the fact that her slide puts her low to the ground interacts with other stuff. Like there's stuff that could be fun to learn there, and even learn to play against, and stuff that I could learn to throw the sheep at. But it's just that all takes time I did not have this week, and I probably will not have most of next week because the way things are going, most of this crap's going to need following up next week, and it's just
Well, at least you don't have taxes.
yeah, tax season's over for now. I have a oh yeah, that's how many months reprieve do I have until the beginning of tax season again? Uh May to June, June to July, July to August, August, September. I've got 5 months until we're back in tax sale. Well, that's when it's due, so really 4 months until I gotta get started on it again. Why does it feel like it never stops?
Because it doesn't. You're still being taxed. You just don't have to fill out the paperwork.
There's just pain.
At least you're not being audited.
I am desperately trying to avoid an audit until I can get past the opossum and the opossum's brother doing record keeping for that company. I can make
Can you get sort of spot audited without cause, or
yeah, you can just get randomly audited. Yeah, they don't have to give you a reason at all. You can just be selected for a random audit, and I just have to hope against all hope we aren't tagged for a random audit in the time it'll in the time it'll take me to get the old records moved out of the 7-year gap that random audit can cover, because they can audit you for up to the last 7 years. And if I'm the one that kept records, probably not my first year, so we're looking at about when I took over the record keeping. So 2018 onwards, we're pretty close. I just need to not get audited for about 2 or 3 more years to feel comfortable. My record
I'm obliged to keep records for 7 years as well, but I've never heard of an auditor asking for anything older than 6 months. Probably because they know that in reality, it's basically impossible to trace anything older than that back, and there's not really any meaningful case that you would want to unless there was a court case involved.
Mm-hmm.
And generally speaking, if you have to go to court as a commercial lab, you've gotten involved in something you probably should have avoided.
Yeah, the IRS goons that the nominally conservative party didn't defund and allowed to get their brand new headquarters alongside the FBI. Just random audit small businesses with the explicit intent of just destroying small businesses. That they're just a malicious and evil entity. That like this is how lawbertarians are born. Is the IRS is just an evil apparatus created for an evil purpose.
Sounds
Like,
legit.
and like this is how people fall into the libertarian trap, because the IRS is evil. They exist just to destroy small businesses. That's it. They never ever you never hear about the IRS. Maybe one case every 3 years will they go after somebody that's not a small business and it makes the headline. Their primary job is to try and destroy small business in America. Just, I do not like the IRS. Sam, I am. If they come to the house, well, you may not see me again. No. That's it. I do not have anything. I can't even stretch what I got. There's just genuinely nothing.
Bro, I worked so hard to stretch.
Yeah,
You're not even gonna try.
I mean, what do you want me to tell you about how the Slice is Right went this week?
Or do you even know?
Well, yes. But the answer is my luck with the shell game at the end is comically bad. Before the last round of Bamboo, the shell game where it's random which third of the map is getting kicked out, and afterwards, I had the magical ability to attract that dog like you wouldn't believe this week.
Is there an esports third?
No, it's totally random every time for the shell game. It slices right. You pick a third and hope for the best. And if you pick the quadrant or the trident I pick, you just get doggo booped. Beast.
I've stolen a mushroom.
Mushes.
Problem is that I don't want to farm. I don't want to farm the hydromats that I need to level Mona up. My Constellation 2 Mona.
I got at least one Mona. Where are you at, Mona? Yeah, I have a Mona at C1.
I have C2 Mona. Oh, it's so embarrassing. Apart from Mona, I only have 2 5-stars. Everything else ends up being Mona.
Got Klee. Got Littlest Terrorist.
Yeah, I've got Klee and Yaimiko, and those are my only 5-stars. Everything else is Mona. It's Mona every time.
Blow up Mondstadt. It'll be K. Right. So there is no email this week. Let's see. There is a companion piece I found that goes along with one of the topics we had last week. That I don't even know if we talked about last week. To be honest, I cannot remember last week at all. This whole
Last week, pretty much, we just talked about the Final Fantasy Dawn Trail thing, the class changes, and so forth.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is a follow up from 2 weeks ago then. So, some of you may remember us briefly mentioning that Capcom is doing pretty good lately. Despite everything, you know, Monster Hunter, Devil May Cry, Resident Evil, even Street Fighter, unfortunately, have all just sold really, really well. They're doing gangbusters because even their games with a few shoes like Dragon's Dogma still have good video game as their core, and so they've been doing okay. They've at least been trying to make video game that is fun. They have not fallen into the yearly releases of Ubisofts or whatever, and they seem to have a real focus on making sure the games that they put out are at least workable. Most of them seem to be complete, as is the case with the recent Resident Evils and Devil May Cry 5, etc. So they're turning over record profits. This is working out really well for them. Who'd have thunk? And then we have an opposite case of this week. Squeenix stock prices have continued to fall by another 15%. This past week, I think it's back up from it rebounded a little bit, but not all the way. And yeah, most of this seems to be just a continuation of their stocks crashing and burning ever since Forsaken, basically.
Forspoken.
Yeah, Forspoken.
I remember it wasn't a real word.
Yeah. So it's interesting to me looking at Squeenix because they seem to be kind of stuck. They've got one director that is turning out games that are profitable, and one of those two games that, while profitable, wasn't nearly as profitable as it should have been because you locked it to PS5. And that's your boy Yoshi P. Like, how hard is 14 carrying that company right now? I don't even think the 7 remakes are doing that hot.
Well, the 7 remakes aren't, because a lot of people wanted a 7 remake and they didn't get one. They got like alternate timeline 7, and they feel betrayed because they thought they were getting a 7 remake and they didn't. But the only title that they've got pretty much that has sort of like ongoing growth potential is Final Fantasy 14. Like, everything else is proven to be a flash in the pan, and I hope that. I hope they learn the right lessons from that, because the wrong lesson would be for them to decide, okay, so every game that we release going forward needs to be Overwatch 2. Which
Yeah.
seems to be something that a lot of people are doing right now. They seem to be very, very much clinging to that particular live service model, which has just shown round failure so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's and I don't know why. How much money would Sony have to offer them to make Final Fantasy 16 PS5 exclusive? Because I guarantee you that shot him in the foot.
Yeah, I don't see why they did that. I think that it's likely that they made a sort of a broader deal rather than a specific deal with them. Like, oh well, we will, all of the titles that we release in this particular release window, we will allow them to be exclusives for X amount of time, and maybe they didn't negotiate carefully over exactly how much time that was, or what. But regardless of whatever the case is, they've made their bed now and they've got to lie in it. I looked at their sort of like their major tent poles of their strategy going forward, and it looks like they're basically going to just abandon exclusivity generally, or at least that's the intention. They might have extant deals that force them to continue to cooperate with that way of doing things in the short term, but I don't think they intend to stay there in the short term, because exclusivity does nothing for anybody anymore. It's not. Exclusivity seems to have sort of like a powerful catalytic effect when you have IPs that are yours, like that they're closely identified with your console. Like when you've got Mario, that has a certain amount of sort of Mario specific power. But just making something a console exclusive that doesn't have sort of like a mental association for people with that console, I don't think that that's going to move consoles very effectively.
Yeah.
And the fact is that Final Fantasy as a whole is just sort of over the hill at this point.
Yeah, Final Fantasy has long since been associated with multiple platforms. And even throughout its life, it's platform hopped. It's never been married to one, even at any particular time, or even favored one, uh, consistently anyway. Because early
Well,
on,
I mean,
it was Nintendo, and then it was Sony, and then it was
I,
platform agnostic, and now it's back to
I think
Sony again.
I think that people like a lot of our generation, the people of roughly our generation, are going to view sort of like that 7, 8, 9, 10 era as sort of like a golden era, and that was all Sony exclusive.
Yeah,
So they're probably trying to trade on that particular market, but the reality is that most of the market nowadays just doesn't think like that. That it's just not important to them. When especially when the that particular demographic are now old enough that have they don't have to look for reasons why their platform has thing X to do, because they now have access to all the platforms. Because that whole generation are adults now. If they are still gamers, then they can afford whatever gaming platform they want. They don't need to defend one particular one as being the ideal only one that they want to participate in. It doesn't need to work like that for them anymore. So it's not like, oh well, if they don't have a PS5, they can't play Final Fantasy, because they've got everything. So it's like, well, if I don't have Final Fantasy, I can just play anything else. Like, there's plenty of JRPGs. Don't need to play that one, especially considering Final Fantasies, by their nature, differ radically from title to title in a variety of ways. And it's not like you are purchasing a known quantity when you get a Final Fantasy. It used
mm-hmm.
for a time it was a case of, oh, everybody knows that Final Fantasy games are great JRPGs, but well, that's not really the case anymore. They sort of screwed the pooch starting from about 12 onwards. 12 was highly divisive, and well,
Yeah, 13 gets a
the
bad rap.
less the 13 13 was a commercial experiment, which was a colossal failure in a lot of ways. 15. Can you say anything nice about 15?
Uh,
Graphics were good, I guess.
the only thing, as somebody that played 15, that comes in my mind is fighting random bullcrap, and Rama decides, no, I need to nuke this giraffe.
I mean,
I cannot tell you a thing about the gameplay in that game. It's all flown out of my head. Just
instant ramen and dried toast, like
boy band road trip featuring the Spice Girls. That's it.
there's not really anything nice to say about it. It did not feel like a Final Fantasy game in the slightest.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what can that was their last great outing before 16. So, what are they trading on for 16 in that case? They're trading on a player base that are suspicious already that they're just going to get another one of those again.
Where's the terrifying lasagna man? I remember him.
The terrifying lasagna man.
Yeah, there's like some dude in the port city that sells lasagna to you for a massive EXP buff, and he has the most horrifying expression on his face.
I don't remember because I did a minimal run through that game and then I finished it and then I never looked back.
Ah, there we go. We have a better picture. I will attempt to find a better picture in due time. But yes, there's a terrifying man who sells lasagna, and he is, yeah. Anyway. So yeah, they just kind of dropped the ball on most of their junk. People weren't a big fan of the Kingdom Hearts 3 when that came out either. For whatever, Frigucci was a just complete train wreck and disaster.
Yeah, they need to. A lot of these people need to understand that people actually there is nobody who cares about diversity. That person doesn't exist. There just aren't. The world is full of people who will say that they care about diversity, but none of them actually do because diversity isn't a thing you can care about. It's not. It's basically unquantifiable because nobody can agree on what it means, and it provides no tangible influence or benefits in any way. You're just expected to believe that it does. So there's nobody that cares about diversity. Ergo, diversity can't improve your sales. Therefore, if you start out with diversity in mind along any axis of your project, that project immediately becomes useless.
The only factor of race when you're that it should come up in the design of your game is deciding which color you think fits best for the personality type you've attached to that character. What's their history?
I'm afraid that you can't actually convince me that it didn't affect Forspoken in any way. Like, the game was designed to be Girl Boss the game. Colored Girl Boss the game. Like, that was it. That was what it was.
Well, they had an explicit, the fuzz are out to get me because my melanin count is high at the beginning of it. Didn't they?
I don't know, because I didn't play it. All I know is that nobody who played it liked it. Like, there were some people who found things about it that they liked and who said that there is this particular aspect that I think is good, but as a game, it was a failure. Yeah. Nobody's interested in it. And ultimately, it was hobbled by an excessive concern for appearances. Like, they did not consider what is actually fun. They considered what is going to avoid us getting in trouble with the diversity police. Like, the core of your concern not being on fun is going to make a game that is not fun. End of story. That's why games that set out with all of the sort of like the psychological traps in mind to try and make money and that sort of thing still don't make money no matter how clever their traps if there's nobody on the team whose primary goal is, oh, this has to be fun, this has to be appealing, people need to like being here. Like, none of the gachas in the world managed to make their humongous amounts of money without there being something that people enjoy in there. But Forspoken seemed to completely nix all of that. They were just like, oh, no, no. All we need is diversity. And then people will appreciate it because everybody knows that they have to. No, no. Revealed preference says otherwise. Revealed preference says people don't want to play that game because nobody can relate to that main character at all. Period.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no ingress there. It is easier to relate to Super Mario than it is to relate to that character. Because people know who Mario is.
Yeah, I'd wager most people have more in common with Mondstadt's Littlest Terrorist than whatever monstrosity of a protagonist they tried to stick in for Gucci.
Well, the thing is that the writing a character like Forspoken's lead, like it has something that other characters don't have, and that's don'ts. There are things that you're just not allowed to do. The character is black, the character is female, and the character is a child. And that means that there are a whole bunch of writing things that you can't do. They're just out of bounds from the word go. They are not allowed to ever be defeated by a male. They are not allowed to ever be hurt in a permanent way. They are not allowed to be shown in a position of subjection or subjugation. They are not allowed to this. They are not allowed to that. All of these things are just don'ts. You can't. You're not allowed because this particular character is modeled on a group that in the real world have special privileges afforded them by law. The overclass, if you will. Like they are the people who have special consideration that other people don't have, and as such, if you show them in a context where that particular privilege isn't being respected, you're going to get condemned. Now, the thing that people don't seem to be able to work out is that you will not be condemned by anybody meaningful.
Yeah.
The only people that can really condemn you are people who don't play video games or people who only play Genshin, apparently.
I am brought to mind during the unknown disease of unknown origin. When the opossum would grab a mask to go to the supermarket or whatever. I'm like, why? Why do that? It is not required by law here. Like, oh well, I just don't want people to look at me funny. What do you care? A bunch of randos at the supermarket think who are going to forget about you in 30 seconds and will never ever see you again anyway. This is this exact same type of logic when it comes to appeasing these crazy Twitterites, which are the only people that would scold you for any decision you make. Who cares? They are such a small minority of the population, and more to the point, they probably don't buy your product.
I did wear a mask to the supermarket, but it was only a few times, and it was specifically because it was in the wake of other supermarkets in the area calling the police to remove people who were not wearing masks. And the police were currently, in New Zealand, were currently sort of riding high on being drunk on power at that time. And so people were getting the cops called on them for not wearing masks and were being forcibly removed from supermarkets. However, despite the law not changing in any hurry, as soon as the furore about it died down, I stopped wearing the mask, and I was literally the only person in the supermarket each and every time that was not wearing the mask. But nobody dared say anything. At all. Even the people who were supposed to be enforcing it, they just sort of moved away from me because nobody wanted to take responsibility for doing anything about it.
Yeah, it got booted from by our governor at the time pretty dang quick, as you can't go around enforcing this crap. If you don't sign a brand new law for your city, which nobody did, you can't enforce this crap. Period. End. And he signed that as a mandate, and that was that. People still wouldn't take their stupid face diaper off, but I'm walking through the supermarket and I would occasionally, just once in a while, see another guy, usually somebody whose name was probably Bubba, but or Cletus. I'd be walking by, and there was a whole unspoken conversation between the two of us when we would pass each other, with that just was exchanged with a head nod. Just like, look at all these idiots around us. They're so worried about what other people think of them. It
Yeah,
must suck to be them.
there was nobody else. Like, I did not see anybody else not respecting the rules. I have not been back to a McDonald's since they threw me out for not having proof of vaccination. Like, the hysteria took place at a high level in New Zealand. I have heard that there are lots and lots of people who are not complying, which was used to drive the hysteria. But I live in a city, and you know what cities are like. So, yeah, when in my home province, like, the government was sort of like considering punitive action against my home province because the vaccine uptake rate was so low.
I see. One
Like,
second. The door has
punitive
blown
action.
open again.
Anyway, we're not really on the topic, but I don't remember what the topic was anyway. It was somehow it was forspoken, but yeah. So ultimately, this is a case that they made their bed. They have to lie in it, and it's going to be a long road to recovery for them. They need to think about what's actually meaningful. Like, do they care about making video games or not? Because if they care about video games, then they're going to need to discard their other concerns, like whether or not the diversity police will like them. That's really all that it comes down to, is that they are trying to farm likes from the diversity police, and they're not going to get it
Yep.
because they don't like anybody.
I got to replace the hinges. Like the third time during the show. But yeah, it's just
Yeah.
all these
A lot of
companies.
people will say that that's not actually the reason. A lot of people say that oh no, Forspoken's just bad as a game. No, it's bad as a game. Yes, that's true, but it's bad as a game because the game wasn't their concern.
Yeah, your priorities were skewed. Your priority was make a quote unquote diverse game, not make a fun game. Like, I want to make this thing called a video game, but my priority isn't to make it fun or to engage the players or to try and be innovative in the gameplay or, find a unique way to use video games to tell a story. No, no, no. It was melanin and Vagugus and mash them together with a tude. That was your first thing on your design document. Not fun, not good. It was I have a character and this thing needs to be a protagonist because the diversity police said so.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to live in this world, they're going to have to learn the lesson that you should just use a white male protagonist, because the people that will poo-poo you won't affect sales, and you've just got the freedom to do whatever you like with the story, so the story will be better.
I think we just need to enter a realm where people uninstall Twitter. People uninstall every social media app and realize it's canceled. This is Fantasyland, by the way. This will never happen. But in this Fantasyland of rainbows and happy dreams, people just completely uninstall Twitter and realize that all these people that are getting mad at them for not following their diversity agenda or that are trying to push this diversity agenda are just a minority of idiots that are just really loud and not going to buy their product anyway. And that maybe if they are making video games, they should focus on making a fun video game. Maybe things turn out okay, because it seems like despite the PS5 handicap, Final Fantasy 16 did okay. It is not reporting losses. Its big handicap is its console exclusivity that's shooting itself in the foot.
But it also had a totally conventional fantasy story, by and large. Like, it had a medieval setting. It got condemned in the press for all the characters being white.
Well, yeah, and Final Fantasy kind of needed one. It aside from 14, all the other Final Fantasies have been very lean in future. Well, I guess 12 since 13 anyway. But that's still a huge span of time before we'd gone back to high fantasy in a single player game for Final. To kind of reset it back to where it came from. Stand on top of the fountain and Margaret walks up to you. Character will turn. very slowly to watch Margaret every time she walks by.
I just drowned. I fell in the water with no stamina.
Yeah, it's a it's just an interesting contrast because Capcom mostly seems to have figured it out to reorient their products towards making fun video game. Not because you remember they had the Japanese some form of wackadoodle Japanese diversity thing going on back beforehand. This is how we got Dino May Cry, where your boy creator of Mega Man supposedly uh wanted to westernify Capcom. And if everything need to fit Western sensibilities. This is how we got Dino May Cry. And this is how the company almost went bankrupt. And this is how we got Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and characters are really just function. But yeah, they turned it around. How did they turn it around? Maybe we should just make good video games. Now, it may have taken Itsuno kicking down an executive's door and going, okay, you idiots, listen what you're going to let me do. Otherwise, I'm walking, and you can't afford to lose me. You're going to let me make Devil May Cry 5. You're going to let me make Dragon's Dogma 2. And I think there was one other game on his demands list, but I'm not sure what it is. And I'm going to show you that just making good vidya is how it works. And everything will be good.
You see, the thing is, when it's not, hobbled by diversity. If you look at something like Dragon's Dogma 2 came out with almost exclusively bad press, but it didn't seem to affect its success all that much because the all publicity is good publicity applied, but when they've hobbled themselves with getting involved in this idiotic politicized discussion of race, like that ceases to work. It doesn't function anymore. You're just knackered. End of story.
And at the end of the day, even though Dogma 2 has quite a bit of jank in it, it's still underneath all the jank. There is a game that is a fun video game that somebody was trying to bring to reality. It may not have got it all the way there, but it's still enough of it there that you could pull bits and pieces of it out as you play. Oh, the priority here was make fun video game. He just didn't quite have the finesse to quite execute it the way he wanted to, and some technical limitations bit him in the butt. But otherwise, you can tell what Itsuno's goal was. Like, make fun video game. But you get mired in that political morass, and it changes your priority. If your first priority isn't make fun video game, oh, you're not going to make a good video game. So yeah, that's all I got there. We might need to call this a short show this week because I just don't.
Yeah.
Oh, I did forget one thing. Yeah, I did forget one thing about my week this week that took no time for my week to do other than go run to the polls, which I waited till Tuesday to go do. We succeeded. Also, the turnout appears to be over 100%, and we still succeeded. So make of that what you will.
It must be a very important issue in your area for more than 100% of people to show up to the polls.
Yeah, it's a very important issue for people that weren't allowed to vote on it, because if we incorporate as a city, it is going to put a whole lot of red tape and cockblock them for a while. They have to at least give legal mouth service until they just give up and just break the law. So their plans for expansion and expanding the metro area now have us acting as a bulwark for the northern end of the state. And they are none too plussed about that.
But Marta.
Yeah. I was an engineer for Marta. I have never been to engineering school. I have never taken an engineering class. But I would not use the toilets at Marta. because my engineering drawings, drawn from scratch in Microsoft Paint, are actually in the file cabinets. I'm not kidding.
Needing AutoCAD is just software developer propaganda. Paint is just fine.
There is no exaggeration at all in this statement. I am the engineer for most of the sewage works at the West Point MARTA station, and I'm fairly certain, because I did them when I was just starting, that if you actually attempt to use those sewage systems as advertised, like a normal toilet, they may just explode. I am 100% positive I got the water pressure wrong. I have no idea how well it's functioning. They have not called us for a replacement, though, which is fairly normal for MARTA. And when they had me Frankenstein the basin together, the engineering they got from me was, I did this in MS Paint. Does this work? Because I didn't know what I was doing at the time. And yeah, that works. And they list it as the engineer's drawing when it came back approved.
Well, I mean, it's not like anybody uses train station public toilets anyway, right? Surely nobody would be that crazy.
Yeah. Good old MARTA. So yes, I'm now no longer a Bufordian. Well, actually, I think it takes about a month before the incorporation of the city takes effect, but it's past absolutely every check now. There's nothing they can do to stop it now.
Well, nothing using conventional legal means.
No. They will assuredly. Well, actually, they'll probably take this loss and move on to subverting it a different way. I think infiltration or just outright ignoring the law later down the line are more likely.
So they're not going to kill another one of Kemp's family members?
Probably not over this one. This is a thorn in their side, but it's not the end of the world for them.
Will they have to redraw electoral districting entirely?
For our area, we will probably get roped into the district to the north right of us.
It's
So yeah, I think that's where we're going with that. But yeah, you elect somebody at the local level, send them to the state house, and something actually happens. Just what is this garbage? That ain't the real world. That ain't how things are supposed to work.
Yeah, well, I mean, I hope that individual has a safe career going forward, because they don't like people who can change things.
They don't like somebody who can actually keep their promises and represent the electorate and actually make a difference and make them have to work. All the bureaucrats that are going to have to sit down and do paperwork now? Man, they might blow up Kemp's kid. There'll be no partisan agenda at all. Just the bureaucrats will be so upset they have to actually do some work. Oh man. So yeah, that's the only other thing I got. Oh, I suppose I can show this for stretching. I wanted to be sure I remember my Palace of the Dead trauma. So I have given myself intestinal damage by trying to drink a whole bunch of Mountain Dews.
Please drink verification can.
Yeah, I haven't had Mountain Dew in forever. And something about the blue one, it had reactions that caused shoes. I would not advise the blue one. It had a greater effect on the digestive tract than Taco Bell.
I don't think I've had a Mountain Dew since I was about 9 years old.
But you get the Mountain Zoo from it, so I can ride the Anzu around
You do. I wouldn't.
Does what you call it? Did I just give you codes and have you plug them into the website? Would that work?
I have no idea.
Because I'm gonna
I
have
don't
like
think you
3
want.
extra cans.
Do you actually want to drink them though?
No, I've had 3 of them, and I think that's more than enough. Do thanks. The monsters down there are emergency coffees or mana potions for the show. That's about all they get used for. It has taken forever to chew through that bottom. That bottom drawer was filled about 2 months ago, and I barely put it in it.
I don't think I've ever owned that many cans of Monster before.
The 2 12-packs that I got were on super deep discount.
Oh, for some reason, if you buy a discount 12-pack in New Zealand, it never actually amounts to being a discount.
Yeah, it was like it cut down the price of the second one to only a fourth of its normal cost if you bought 2 of them. Because I guess they were just trying to get rid of them. So I just got 2 12-packs, and like that'll last me like half a year. Just stuck them in the fridge. So yes. But that is the type of 12-ounce bottles you need to buy for the codes. I'm up to 300 points. You need 600 points for the zoo. Each of those bottles are worth 100 points.
So you have to drink 6 bottles of Mountain Dew.
6 verification cans, yes. What are you doing on Mount Aokong?
Dying.
Oh! You're fighting
I
that
forgot
thing.
that it could do the elemental thing. And of course it's mad tweaking because multiplayer scaling. No, it killed me because I was frozen.
Oh yeah, go.
I need these bone shards, you see.
I tried to have Yao come save you, but she could not. Ah! Another friend.
Unfortunately, I only have Sucrose in my party right now because I did one of those pop-up quests that requires you to blow away a mark.
Oh no. So we have literally no element that can interact with Dendro, because I have 2 Dendro characters.
Yes. That is correct.
Okay, yeah. This not going very fast. Oh, we got some hyper blooms going. By accident. I think the thing ran into the water.
I thought you need lightning for hyper bloom.
Oh, we got some blooms, not the hyper blooms. Regular blooms.
Why were the drops from that thing better than the ones from the giant one?
Oh, why are you complaining about it?
I need to go back to a Statue of the 7 anyway. I'm not going to try and break those rocks with sucrose. That would take all day.
Okay. Alrighty, that's a good spot to end it, though, I think, folks. This is a nothing show. We know. We're sorry. Fern, come back, please.
Why he got to do this to us, Maine?
But this was just a bad week for me and Vol to be stuck by ourselves because we did not do anything. We've been too busy this week. So hopefully Fern will return and things will be good. You got anything for us in this out? I think I'm gonna call it there before we start really rambling.
Yeah, I don't think I've got anything else much to talk about. It just wasn't one of those weeks that catalyzes a lot of chatter, and I already got 2 hours worth out of my week, so.
All right, folks. We'll see you next week. Sayonara. Bye-bye.